So welcome everyone to the Alumni Roundtable on Development. My name is Samantha Bruno. I am the Interim Assistant Director of Career Services. I'm joined here with Suzanne Grossman, the Deputy Director of Graduate Career Services and Alumni Relations. I also see that we have Professor Michael Seltzer on our call here as well, who teaches our courses in fundraising and development here at the Marxe School and is part of the New York Community Trust as well. I'm very, very excited to introduce our 4 alumni guests who work in fundraising and development across different industries. So what I'll do is I'll introduce them all quickly, and then I will pin them to your screen so you see them all in speaker mode here. So first, I'm going to introduce Carlos. I'd like to introduce Carlos Bernabe, Chevon Deputy, Hera, Javaid, and Jenny Lai. So thank you all very much for joining us here. So if we could start, I'll start with an introduction. Carlos, could you kick us off? Oh, Carlos, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yes, so thanks, Suzanne and Samantha, for organizing this event. This was really lovely, and glad to be here. So I'm Carlos, and I graduated with my MPA after the last semester, so fairly recent grad. I'm currently senior analyst at Goldman Sachs, working in their philanthropic arm, but I've had 7 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, most recently at the New York Public Library.
Great, wonderful, thank you so much. And then next I'd like to introduce Chevon Deputy.
Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know where people are based. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm Chevon Deputy. I received my MPA in 2012, really, but I think it was for 2013. I am currently the Senior Director of Development for Climate Nexus. Prior to that, I was a major gifts officer at the Environmental Defense Fund. Most of my career has been in the nonprofit realm. So that is about 15 years, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Next will be Hera Javaid.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. I received my MPA in 2020. I'm currently the Director of Individual Giving at Asia Society. And you kind of see a glimpse of that behind me. That's our New York location. We have 14 branches globally. And I have over 11 years of fundraising experience from the American Museum of Natural History, 92nd Street Y, some environmental fundraising at the Natural Resources Defense Council, and higher ed. So I got to work at both Baruch College and John Jay College. So very excited to be here with you guys.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but not least, Jenny Lai.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I graduated with my MPA in 2017 with the National Urban Fellows Program. So I pursued my master's degree a little later in my career, and it was really a wonderful experience. I have over 20 years in nonprofit as a founder and a chief officer of in the computer video game industry, and currently I am with the VP of Development at Dress for Success Worldwide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. So my first question to you all is actually, I'm going to ask you to kind of reflect on your time at Marxe. What are some reflections or connections that you saw in the classes in your program, to whether it's something you're doing currently or something that you first saw when you were working in the field? And I'll let anyone start.
So I'll jump in here. So I, as I mentioned, I joined, sorry, my doorbell is ringing, my dog bell. I started my master's degree a little later in my career on kind of on a whim. And what I found to be really helpful and really validating was that I learned that a lot of the things that I had invested all of the time and the learnings that I had achieved in my professional career really was on par with what I was learning in the master's degree. So I think that if I had started the master's degree much earlier, I would have been really well equipped to enter my field now. I think the number one thing that I really appreciated was my ability to write quickly and succinctly and briefly, but getting to the point really kind of improved by like 100-fold. My ability to assess and analyze different opportunities really improved.
Okay, thanks.
I'll go ahead and chime in.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So for me, you know, fundraising, a lot of fundraising is it's relationships. And I really got a great sense of that in the MPA program. We have Professor Seltzer here, and I've taken his class. He's phenomenal. But we also have Suzanne and Samantha. And one of the biggest things, you know, I've realized is we have all this wealth of knowledge and all these partners that are here to help you succeed. And so take the time to get to know everyone and, you know, have those one-to-one conversations. You never know where it's going to take you. And actually a really great story is with Suzanne is, you know, I started off my MPA while I was working at the Natural Resources Defense Council. And at that time, I was looking to pivot into higher education. And so because I was already in the MPA program, I noticed there was an opening at Baruch to be a development officer. I wanted to shift into frontline fundraising. And we connected. We had a great one-to-one conversation on what that role would look like and would it be a great fit. And you know, the rest is history. So I got a chance to work at Baruch and be a student, which kind of gave me a little bit of an edge to fundraise for the school itself. So I would say leverage all of your connections here. There's truly a wealth of knowledge at every corner.
Thank you for that. I wanted to piggyback on or emphasize what Jenny said about getting your MPA later in your career. I actually was about 5 years into my career and just was thinking about what did I want to make my next move, what can really propel me to advance in my career. So that's why I looked at getting an MPA. So I looked at NYU, I looked at a number of schools, but they were significantly more expensive. And I knew that I could get a great education at Baruch. So that's why I decided to pursue an MPA. So in terms of the coursework that really helped me, budgeting, I was thinking like, oh man, I know how to connect this Excel spreadsheet. I know how to do, you know, make a change in that. And it really helped me when I'm looking at especially foundation grants, and you have to put the FTE, you have to do the line items. And if the more money that you request, it becomes a little bit more complicated. So I really use those skills too in my in real life and my job. Another course that I took that was very helpful was governance. I'm actually on the transition team of Climate Nexus at the moment because our AD stepped down, and I'm ready to put that hat on and talk about board development and governance and all of those things. So even though I'm a little ways out, I can always look back and see what skills I can use and what skills Baruch actually propelled me with.
Yeah, and just to jump in on that, and you know, echoing everyone else's sentiments, I started the MPA a few years out of undergrad, and so I had some experience already in the development world. At the time, I was working in a small museum called the Drawing Center, doing individual fundraising, individual giving. But when I started the MPA, I really wanted to really hone in on my quantitative skills. And so even now, you know, a couple of years later, and now at Goldman Sachs, like that has helped me immensely from, you know, taking the budgeting class or the econ classes. Like those are the ones that I definitely take, definitely look back and say, wow, like this is one of those classes that I am glad that I took. And even more so like the relationship management as well, like making sure that you reach out to not just your classmates, but also to professors who can provide their insight. I know, econ, but still, it was a good class. Yes.
But I'm not sure at Goldman Sachs it works really well in your work.
So I just want to jump in to say that microeconomics was the one reason I did not achieve a 4.0 in my graduate degree.
Exactly.
It was the one class that held me back.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that. I try to block that out. But thanks, Carlos, for bringing those feelings back up for me.
Sorry about that.
Did we may have lost Sam. Let me see if she's
Yeah,
she looks
frozen.
She looks frozen.
okay. Let me give her a second. Yes, it's funny because she is at the office today.
Suzanne, do you want me to pipe in at this point with talking about our course offerings, or later?
Maybe later. I think we want to, I don't know what, so I'm a little out of the loop of what Sam had prepared for you all, if you all have the question, but I'd love to hear you talk about your roles, like to hear more about your actual work at your specific nonprofits, and just tell us a little bit more about like what that entails. And I think we wanted to put together a diverse panel of within development, knowing that some of you are working on individual giving. I know, Carlos, you used to work on corporate giving at the library. Jenny, you're more of a chief development officer. So just, yeah, like a little bit of a sense of like those specific roles within development. And I think that, yeah, so Sam says she was going to ask about connecting fundraising and development across the industries. So any of those threads you want to pick up on? Who wants to go?
I can start. So my career in development actually began after I interned at Random House, because I thought I was going to be a big time editor. And then reality hit me and says, no one leaves that position because it's very, I don't know, coveted position. So I will have to probably be there until I'm like 40, and then maybe I'll become an associate editor. So not even the top editor who appears in the publications. So then I try to figure out what my next move was going to be. So I put together a chart and I said, what skills do I have and what skills do I want to attain? And in undergrad, I actually did the phonathon, and I was like, okay, that seems like that's going to work. So that's how my career in development actually started. And I worked at a number of healthcare institutions in New York. And then I actually went to work for a small educational nonprofit called The Better Chance. And then I decided to enter the realm of the environment. So I was able to work in areas that I'm passionate about, which I really appreciate. My current role is something that is completely new for me. I'm their first senior director of development. So there's no one to compare me to. I'm leading all the efforts of fundraising, and it's just a team of one. And it's a staff of approximately 50. So it's really about trying to balance my time and knowing who I should work with closely, because not everyone is a fundraiser and not everyone is comfortable. So it's like fundraising 101 and getting everyone up to speed. The portfolio mostly is foundations. I only did that at the beginning of my career because most of my career was individual giving. So to me, it's pretty much like a refresher. So it's like building a program from the ground up, but also incorporating what they have existing. So it's a challenge, but it's a great opportunity at the same time.
I'll jump in next. You know, as Suzanne mentioned, I'm the VP of development. So, and we don't have a chief development office, so I'm essentially it. So our primary focus is cause marketing, corporate corporate partnerships. I would probably say about 65 to 70% of our revenue comes from that, and the rest comes from events and individual donations. I started out my career in also publishing. I'm dating myself, but during the doom craze, where everybody was thinking that they could turn their intellectual property into a computer video game and make tons of money hands over fist. Well, that didn't happen. I spent a number of years spinning my wheels there, and then I ended up at the Trade Association for the Computer and Video Games industry and started a foundation there. I spent 15 years there, both on the grant making and the grant fundraising side. So we were a foundation that raised money to give away. We did not get money that was just gratis from the industry. And from there, I started a consulting business to help small and medium nonprofits kind of get to the next level. Since many of the folks that were applying for grants, I noticed were really struggling to get to that next level. I think that founder syndrome is very, very real. Some companies, some organizations spend 15, 20 years stuck in that founder small scarcity mode and never get to the next stage. And then I applied for the Enough campaign very kind of coincidentally. I just came across it and I was like, I'll try it. Why not? I got in and I spent some time at the Houston Health Department helping them create their foundation there. And I came back and was picking up my consulting business again when the opportunity with Dress for Success Worldwide came along. So we are a global organization. We're in 23 countries. And basically, we are currently, actually, when I accepted this invite, I didn't realize it was on International Women's Day. Our biggest campaign of the month is in March. YourHourHerPower.org. We just announced today that Scarlett Johansson, huge feather in my cap, by the way, big bells and whistles for me, came on as a global ambassador. So we are in the month of March and trying to raise money for women everywhere to help them achieve financial independence. So that's it for me.
I'll go ahead and chime in next. So for me, it's a little bit different because I really started my career all in fundraising. So when I got out of, when I graduated from my undergrad, I thought I wanted to focus on museum education. And that's what led me to the American Museum of Natural History. I did informal education, realized it was not for me, and then got a chance to work in membership. And that one experience really changed my life. And so from that one experience at the American Museum of Natural History, and that kind of led to all these other opportunities with cultural organizations, environmental organizations, higher ed. And now it feels like I've done a bit of a full circle because my very first moment was at the Museum of Natural History. Now I'm back at a museum at Asia Society, but on 70th and Park. So it's really interesting to just see how it all kind of came together. And one of my biggest takeaways is what I really love about philanthropy and fundraising, it's so diverse and there's so many different pieces of the puzzle because I started off my career on a membership-based model and then pivoted towards corporate giving, matching gifts, what it means to have workplace giving, all of those things, what it means to raise money for the environment. And then, once again, pivoted to okay, well, I've done a lot of back end stuff. Maybe I want to try some front end stuff. And that's where Baruch College really came in. And I was able to raise funds for 17 Lex Society. And development at Baruch it's a great team. So if there is an opening or if anyone's interested, I highly encourage it. And then that really funneled into more higher ed fundraising at John Jay, where it was more of a startup environment. So being able to create your own team, being able to do everything from the ground up and really manage their entire annual fund. That was really exciting and different. And so leveraging all of those opportunities, realizing, oh, I really appreciate being here in this moment. Here are the skills I can take from this. And then where do I want to go next? What do I really want to explore? And if you don't like something, that's okay too, because you can always go back and forth depending on what area of philanthropy you want to focus on.
Definitely agree with that back and forth of trying out different sort of areas of expertise within development and just philanthropy in general. But for me, I started my career in development doing individual giving, as I'd mentioned earlier. And I was there for 2-3 years. And while it was great to learn about relationships on a one-to-one level, on an individual level basis, I was more interested in sort of a straightforward transaction. And so I switched over to the corporate giving side when I started at the library, and like I then really learned how to be more succinct when I was reaching out to donors, especially because at the corporate level, people are sort of wanting to just look at basically a memo format. And so tying it back to Marxe, for example, learning how to use the memo format style and being cogent and concise in how you want to convey information, that definitely helps. I would say, but going back to my career, so I was in corporate giving for a few years, and then I wanted a more holistic view of philanthropy, and so I looked into corporate philanthropy specifically because that was the sort of missing part I would say in my experience, and so like on the same side of the different sides of the same coin, rather, where you have development and fundraising asking for money, and then like now I'm in the sort of giving side, sort of like is enriching that experience.
Thank you all. I will give you an update that apparently the campus internet has crashed. Oh, maybe Sam is back now. It's a good thing there was a tree that fell on my train line today, because otherwise both Sam and I would have disappeared from this event. I think she's back.
I am back.
We missed
Hello.
you. Glad you're back. Hopefully the campus internet is gonna hold up. We were just going over a little bit of everyone's career paths and, up to the kinds of roles they're in now, which is interesting. So you're actually good timing, because we were going to transition to another question. And we did design this event to have some breakout room time so that you all can move between. But if there are questions that can come in the chat, we can also, I think feel free to put them in. Sam, did you have a question you wanted to throw in? And I think Michael Seltzer wanted to make a comment at some point soon.
Yes, absolutely. So sorry I missed part of this. I hope it wasn't too disruptive. But I did want to ask all of you, what is a trend that you're currently seeing either at your employer or in your field of development that you're currently following or would like to see, like blossom?
I can go again. I would hope it's not a trend and it's something that is actually going to stick. As everyone knows, in the midst of the pandemic, there was a lot of police brutality and everyone was home and everyone could not ignore it. And a lot of companies, organizations made commitments to equity and diversity and inclusion. I just feel like that should be the core of a lot of work, especially in fundraising, even more so when we're talking about how, for instance, Climate Nexus, how our work will impact those communities, those frontline communities. How is that going to impact them? And my role as a fundraiser is to look at it from that perspective. So we're centering all of our work, including our fundraising efforts, around equity. So I hope that's something that's just not a fad. I'm hoping that those dollars actually go to not just big groups, but also those local communities, which is really important. And even if you say, well, they may not know how to manage the money. Well, McKinsey, formerly Bezos, gives money without strings attached. That allows those organizations and companies to do the necessary work. They know what needs to be done because they're on the ground. So I think that equity needs to be a part of every thread, every strand of an organization. And it shouldn't be just a trend.
Absolutely.
So I'll jump in here. I actually took that question to mean something different. I took it to mean whether or not, what the trends are in nonprofit and the development work. So I'll answer it kind of based on my understanding. So I think that there are two areas I think are going to really continue to explode. So number one is cause marketing co-branding. I think that for most folks on this call who are younger, have never really lived in a society where cause marketing co-branding did not exist, but certainly some that are older, like myself, and perhaps Michael Seltzer, might remember a time where this was like a nice to have, but not necessary. But nowadays, I think in the millennial and the Gen Z generation, everybody who shops expects some sort of social CSR component to the company. And a lot of companies are out there looking for an opportunity to partner with you. I can't tell you that how many companies that I worked with or tried to work with during my consulting times where large, really centuries old nonprofits who really had not even tapped into the corporate partnerships realm yet. They were just starting to build their companies, and this was maybe 4 years ago. So I found that to be very surprising, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Nonprofit moves at a very, very slow pace. The other area that I think is really going to explode and has exploded for us is employee engagement. Companies are looking to invest in their company, in their employee base to provide organized opportunities for employees to volunteer at different nonprofits. And I, when I first started at Just for Success Worldwide, I remember attending a leadership summit for all of our leaders from across the globe. And I was talking about employee engagement and how they should charge companies for that opportunity. Companies pay money to buy pizza, go bowling, go on picnics for their employees. Why are they not being charged for a group volunteer experience, which is taking up employee time, disrupting a service day, etc. So I think that it's a win-win. Nonprofits get volunteers for the day, but also they get a little something in their coffers for their financial and community support. So I think those are two areas that are really going to continue to have traction, and we've only hit the iceberg right now.
I can go ahead and talk about two different things. So there's a couple different things going on right now where, we're still in this pandemic, and one of the biggest takeaways was we had all of these events that were virtual. And now we're thinking about, where does that take us? Where does that leave us? And what does that future look like? And so I'm hoping a trend that's here to stay is at the very least being able to combine those two realities and have hybrid events. For example, at Asia Society, we have an in-person event on the 29th where we're doing a private book launch with our president, but also we want to be mindful for everyone across the world that wants to tune in, and that's going to be streamed live through our YouTube and Facebook and so forth. And so there's so many people that started to engage with us because they had the option to, and to not continue to engage with them and funnel that pipeline would do them a disservice. So that's one of the biggest pieces that I see going forward that's perhaps here to stay. And then another piece I do want to echo, that social justice movement. One of the biggest campaigns we're working on is Asian Americans Building America. And was really created in response to the rise of anti-Asian hate. It was created in response to what was happening in the United States and then also specifically in New York City. And that has taken on a life of its own. And so there's different panels with our president, with other senior leadership. It's also being able to showcase a different people who represent different industries and being able to showcase their talent, what their life is like being Asian in America, in New York City. What does that mean, and how do we move that needle forward? So I think we're very much in that social justice vein, and I hope it does stay, because there's so much of that is connected to what it means to be part of a New Yorker, what it means to be in that global world, and we should continue to move that forward.
Yes, no, definitely agree on all of the points that Jenny, Chevon, and Hera had mentioned. So while I don't work in the nonprofit sector anymore, my job at Goldman Sachs really is very much adjacent to still the nonprofit world. And so on Jenny's point with employee engagement, so I manage all of the partnerships with the firm's partners, arts and culture institutions in New York City and Jersey City. And one of the things that I definitely look for in when we're making grants is that what does the employee engagement look like, and how does it relate to the GS people, and like what are their interests? How can we not only help institutions like in a more meaningful way? And so that's definitely something top of mind when I think about like corporate philanthropy, you know, like with regards to employee engagement. In terms of the equity focus that Chevon was mentioning, at Goldman Sachs, for instance, like we recently launched an initiative called 1 Million Black Women, and it's to support small businesses with, and again, Black women focus, providing them grants and opportunities to grow their businesses and provide them with the not just the capital, but also the network across the US.
Great, thank you all for your just very thoughtful answers. You know, just hearing like across, you know, how you all answered, it was very apparent to me, you know, we do talk about trends sometimes going upwards, but I think you all brought a great point that there are some trends we do, you know, we follow, sometimes we want them to stay stagnant, sometimes we want to see them decrease. Like those are also important trends to follow as well. So thank you all for participating in this first part of the panel. I do know that Professor Seltzer had his hand up earlier, so I just want to give him a second to speak before we go into our second part of our event today.
Thank you, and thank you, Samantha and Suzanne, for organizing this wonderful panel. It makes those of us on the faculty at Baruch and Marxe so proud of all of you, and seeing so many past students present. I just wanted to reinforce a couple of things. One is that Jenny raised the important issue of cost-related marketing, which actually goes back to the 19th century. And we don't have hard data on it, but it appears that corporations are spending more money on cost-related marketing with nonprofits than they are giving away funds. So it's, we don't have to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any exact figures on cost-related marketing. I don't know, Jenny, if you've seen them or not. The second thing, Carlos, back to your point is, and I'm sure you can speak to this in the breakout groups, is employee resource groups and the role that they play as door openers. We have now employee resource groups from LGBT, women, Black, Latinx, Asian American, and that's they've become an important development. So can I, Sam, can I later talk about the courses that we have, because we're extending our development, or what I call resource mobilization concentration, and I'd love to share that with folks.
Yes, absolutely. So after we do the our next part with the breakout rooms, before everyone departs this call today, I'll make sure to have everyone come join us just for final remarks here. So at this time, I will stop the recording. So thank you all for joining us.